Hello, hello. Today's episode is about my first week in Panama City. I am super excited to be talking to you from the San Francisco neighborhood of Panama City. This live stream is really serving the purpose of documenting my travels. I am holding myself accountable for the way in which I want to end up at the end of this 2.5 month season. I actually have, as you know, 3 phases to this sabbatical. If you have been watching my channel for a month or two, know about these. But let me stop and introduce myself and welcome new subscribers. If you are hanging out in the internet and you are a person who loves to travel, loves to learn about travel, perhaps you've been in your career and in your position for a number of years and you felt burnt out. You don't feel like the workplace has been a place where you've been able to really shine the way you did when you started or the way you did a few years ago. The goal of my channel on Sabbatical with Dr. Crystal is to talk about various scenarios where people need advice about how to handle those delicate situations, political situations, strategic situations, and maybe aren't going to get the best direct coaching inside their organization. So career advice is the first bucket that we cover on my channel. And then the second bucket of content that I'm really committed to is workplace wellness. And really it's holistic wellness that expands beyond your personal life, but into the workplace. I think a lot of times people who have goals for themselves in terms of how they want to treat others and how they want other people to treat them may look at their experiences and be like, well, this is not possible. It's too aspirational for this to work at work. And so they put all that on the back burner, and within a couple years, they're burnt out. The workplace is toxic. The culture, they don't have the energy and the passion to perhaps change and transform the culture the way they once did. And so talking about wellness from a holistic standpoint that's consistent inside and outside is something that's really a part of my commitment to discuss on this channel. And then finally, talking about taking career breaks and sabbaticals, which is all about what I'm season of my career, which is traveling abroad time. There are many companies that now offer 3-month sabbaticals or semester-long sabbaticals. So it's important for you to have a plan for what you need and want, ask for what you need and want, and then look at resources, putting together a strategy for how either your current employer or the break between employers can be beneficial to you so that you can have the sabbatical that you desire. So welcome. If this is your first time here, I'm Dr. Crystal Harris. I am a new semi-retired professor. I retired in June of 2024. I was a trained social psychologist. Well, I still am, but I taught in the Department of Psychology, and I also taught in an interdisciplinary studies program for adult learners for a number of years as a tenure-track professor at the same institution. And so in addition to that, I do career coaching, I create digital products, and I have a membership community called Lead and Liberate, where we lead and liberate ourselves and others to have the lives and careers that we are dreaming of, where we can thrive. That's what I'm about. And this is a great time for me to ask you to hit the like and subscribe button if any of that is something that you want to support, that you believe in, that you think would be helpful and we need more of on these internet streets. So I am currently on the second stop of my 2025 year of sabbatical, which is in Panama City, Panama. And I arrived about 9 days ago. And in this episode, I really want to talk about what happened last week. So I arrived on Monday. I'm in an Airbnb. I actually came and I picked it because it has a view. I don't know if you can see the water there, but yeah, I have a lovely view of the ocean, of a bay leading into the ocean. And so that was something that was really important to me, to really invest in staying in spaces, to spend more, to stay in spaces that were going to feed my energy and give me just an environment where I could really rest and thrive. I do think that that was something that I shortchanged myself on the last time when I was in Western Europe. Western Europe is also extremely expensive. Central America is much less expensive than Central America. The hotel that I paid for I mean, I would say $100 a night is probably a good rule of thumb for a hotel in Central America. You can spend a lot more than that, but you could also spend less than that in some boutique hotels. It's also important to me to stay in places that have modern appliances, that have elevators, and that have the support people, front desk, 24 hours, guards, whatever. Not so much from the safety, but so that if I need help or need something, there's someone here to provide that sense of community and support as a solo traveler that's of a certain age. So I'm really excited about where I'm staying now, but I will wait and tell you about this place later. So the second thing is I found a great deal using Priceline to stay in a hotel. And I chose the option where I selected the neighborhood, but I didn't know the name of the hotel. And so I saved an extra 25% by not picking the actual hotel. But you are able to put in criteria like the things I just said: an elevator, a view, a pool, breakfast on site. And usually if a hotel has those things, it's going to have certain other things. So therefore, I ended up, I can tell you now that I'm not there, at the Crown Plaza, Panama, which was in the financial district. I do have many, many pictures. I had hoped to actually upload the pictures to share them during the live stream, but as you know, there's always so one of the reasons I was late today joining the live stream is because I was trying to get those pictures to work and they did not. So unfortunately, I will have to do that as a separate recorded video, which might make it more interesting anyway. But know that that's coming. I do have over 200 pictures from last week's activities. So I really want to talk about burnout and fatigue as something that I was really concerned about, that really impacted me severely in my pretty much immediately when I got to the UK last year in July. I felt that I didn't give myself enough of a pause between just the toll that travel itself takes on a person. Particularly, I think when you're traveling to a new person. And in my case, I'm traveling to a country where English is not widely spoken. And so like in the hotel, there were plenty of English speaking people. So that was one of the pleasant surprises that worked really well. Making sure that I land on that first day or two, that I'm getting a chance to rest and to be in a place where it's going to be a soft landing. That was really strategic. And that is an example of something that, in terms of my plan, I think it worked really well. So the burnout and fatigue from traveling and planning did not hit me last week. I gave myself a full day after I arrived. I also arrived earlier. So I got to the hotel like just minutes before check-in at 3 o'clock. I was able to unpack everything. I was in that hotel 5 days. Because of the cost, I decided to stay longer. Normally, my plan would be to stay in a hotel in a little bit of a touristy area the first couple of nights until I get my bearings and then move into an Airbnb for a longer stay. My average stay in 2025 was going to be around 4 to 5 weeks. I was in Costa Rica for 2 weeks, and I will be in Colombia for much less than that. I will be in Colombia for about 2.5 weeks. But almost everywhere else I'm going, I'm staying longer than a month. So it'll average itself out as we get through the year. But also, I was really concerned about, not at this point because it's only week 1, like making sure that I didn't also overextend myself and do too many experiences. One of the things that the last time I also learned, if I don't book experiences while I'm rested and at the beginning, when I have sort of the energy and the excitement and the honeymoon phase of being in a place, I'm probably not going to book them. I'm going to be like, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. So I was very strategic in that I booked one all-day 12-hour excursion last week, and that was the only excursion that I booked. And I had a fabulous time. I was with the Black expats in Panama, and I participated in their one-day tour to Cologne and Portobello. And so that's a 4-day experience for people who are relocating to Panama. But as you may know, this is my first time in Panama, so I'm not a future expat to Panama, not at this point anyway. I'm not saying it could never happen, but right now I'm not. So I was with about 30 people who had chosen this 4-day experience, and this was one of their days. And so that was an amazing decision. And I paid for that months ago because it also sells out quickly because of the demand of people moving to Panama. Panama, especially African from the US. So Charlotte Van Horn, I got to meet her in person. So if you know her or seen her, I have some pictures of her welcoming us on the bus. And then I got to take a selfie with her when we were towards the Cologne sign. She is however amazing you imagine her to be, she's that and more. I was so impressed with not just her, but her whole staff and the whole experience. And so one of the ways that I'm combating exhaustion and loneliness or just spending too much time alone is really making sure that every week I'm booking it. My goal is actually to book 2 experiences a week. And last week, my first week, I actually only had 1 booked in advance because it was 12, 13 hours. And so I wanted to give myself space to not be overwhelmed. And it was on Thursday and I arrived on Monday afternoon. So I thought that was another reason that 1 was sufficient. Now I did get out and do an excursion to the grocery store. I also got out and took advantage of walking in the morning over to breakfast to kind of take advantage of the neighborhood. So those are all things that went well according to plan. Actually, they went better than expected. The hotel was amazing. The food was amazing. The price point was amazing. The people were amazing. The Black expats in Panama community was amazing in terms of their reception of me that day. I, of course, made friends on the bus that I've been able to stay in touch with. I met someone at the hotel, a young woman who's also a solo traveler that I've seen. I reconnected with her on Sunday after she had moved out of her hotel and I'd moved out of my hotel to here. So those are all things that went really better than expected. So one of the things I want to talk about that I planned that I'm still exploring that is to continue last week's theme is my Spanish language learning and speaking journey. So one of the goals of speaking Spanish, as I said last week, if you're going to be traveling in Latin America or Spanish-speaking countries, is to make sure that you're willing to put yourself out there, so to speak, and enjoy getting to know people, local people or other travelers by using the language. And even though your grammar or your tense or your masculine, feminine might not be correct, it's still important for you to try and to do that. And so last week I mentioned that I had worked with a tutor. I actually came up with this list by myself, but I came up with the idea because I had a tutor, Juan, who I hope to interview on this channel eventually, work with me on the scenario in Costa Rica of going into the market, the central market, and negotiating and shopping for a particular thing. I was actually looking for a purse, which I did buy. I cheated a little bit because I met a woman from the US who was traveling, who spoke Spanish and had lived in Mexico for several years. And so the first time I went to the market, she actually did the negotiation for me and I made a purchase. But I forced myself to go back after she left town. I stayed on longer than she did. And I was able to use kind of that cheat sheet. So what I did was I've just come up with a list of 5 questions that I think are very, very helpful to people who are already maybe speaking Spanish, but, are just feeling uncomfortable. Like, what do you say to meet people and to get to know people? Because if English is not widely spoken or if people feel insecure about their English speaking skills, I mean, they'll say, hey, how are you doing? But they may not feel comfortable like having a real conversation. So it's important, I've learned, to actually be proficient to start conversations. And even if you have to switch to English or Spanglish or, just end the conversation early. Actually, I've actually so far not had that happen. Now, granted, I've only been here 9 days, but I came up with this list of questions, which, by the way, is also going to be on that free resource on my Stan store that I keep teasing you about every week. All right, so this handout is called How to Start a Conversation in Spanish. So it's basically a way of meeting people out and about. And so what I did at the top was I put the list of questions that I created after working with my tutor. And, so I told you, so because Juan and I put the script together and I was eventually able to use it to successfully return to a vendor and negotiate purchasing some additional products, I said, well, what are some other questions? So Jennifer, my Panamanian tutor, and I are doing a list of like 20, 25 questions. So it's just basically about practicing how to ask questions and answer questions. And every week when we meet, we go over like new questions. And so one of my favorite questions that's basically ingrained that I kind of almost ask everybody all the time is, ¿Cuál es tu comida favorita? ¿Cuál es tu comida favorita? People love talking about food. If you are a food, a lot of people who travel are foodies. Honestly, we're traveling because we know the food is amazing. If you come from the US, the food, I mean, there are some cities where the food is known to be pretty darn good, or some things are known to be pretty darn good. But Americans love to eat. That's just the truth about it. And a lot of us who are traveling are looking for really good food. So asking people what's their favorite food and why, por qué, is also a great way to start a conversation. I also like to ask for restaurant recommendations. ¿Qué restaurante recomendarías en este barrio? So in this neighborhood, what restaurant do you recommend in this neighborhood is another one that is a good follow-up to the first one. But the first one is short and easy. And the second one I ask once I'm maybe having a conversation or a coffee or in an Uber ride that I know is going to take 20 or 30 minutes. It's not something that I would ask, like a stranger standing in line at the ATM or at the grocery store or something like that. Another one that I really like is to get some context. I ask this almost every time I'm in an Uber or a ride share is ¿Cuánto tiempo hace vivido en Panama? How long have you lived in Panama? And I actually found out in preparing for this live stream that I've been asking it in the wrong tense. I always say ¿Cuánto tiempo vive en Panama? So how long do you live in Panama in the present tense? So I found out when I wrote the English translation that I was wording it incorrectly, but that happens. So, ¿Qué te gusta de vive in Panama? What do you like about living in Panama? Most people who are Panamanians love, or actually wherever you go, people love where they live. And finding out what they like about it. Sometimes people say the weather. That's also a good question here in Panama because there's so many expat. Panama has a huge expat community, and so did San Jose, Costa Rica. And the next place I'm going, I don't know that Cartagena has as much of an expat community. So we'll see. But I plan on asking that question again. And then the last one, which is just kind of an advanced, what is the one that we always ask? ¿Cómo está? How are you doing, right? How are you? ¿Qué tal is what's up. So those are ones that I learned years ago before I could really speak any Spanish. So they would answer those questions and I didn't know any more Spanish. So I wouldn't even be able to really answer it. But this is how is your day going? And I love this one for the people in the building that I see every day when I walk by the receptionist and the doorman, when I leave the building or in the hotel staff or whatever. If I want to walk up there and ask a question, I might say, good morning, good afternoon, I need some ice. I don't know, whatever it is that I'm looking for a hotel person or an employee or the breakfast staff. I feel like it's a way to invite them to say, hey, I see you and I really do want to connect with you because I don't want to ask you just the basic question that everybody asks. And then on top of that, so those are my preferred questions. I also have 2 bonus questions that are really good. Pasar el tiempo libre. Where do you like to go to spend your free time? And I think that's another one that could even be shortened. It's not one that I'm using yet, but I think what my plan is, this is an example of like my plan that's evolving. I've had such good responses and connections, even with other English speakers who are also learning Spanish, being able to have these conversations. I feel like I want to expand on the list of 5 questions and maybe every week add 1 or 2 new questions so that I could have longer, richer conversations. The other thing I think it's important to do is to pretend someone asked you this question and know how you would answer that question in English and in Spanish. And it's basically know what it means and then answer, like, how do you like to spend your free time? I like to sit with a book by the pool. So I love how when I say that people light up because it gives you like this idea of like, and actually, even if it's not free time, like I believe before I got ready to come here, I went to the pool for 30, 40 minutes. And I really feel like having like a ritual of something you do that really brings you joy and enjoyment is so important. And reading is a big one for me. And sitting by a pool reading or in a pool, just relaxing is one of the ways that I love spending free time. So I also think it's important, and you think about extending your Spanish language journey, especially as you travel, to look at how can you take that next step to do something that you really enjoy doing. Now, if you're I have a lot of friends who would say they're introverts or they're, hermits. They just love being inside. I love talking to people. I love being outside, not after dark, but during the day. And I love getting to know people. And I love getting new ideas for where to eat, where to go, how to spend free time, how to have fun. And then my last bonus question is one that I got from ChatGPT, which is a really good one. So how do you like living here compared to other places in Panama? And you could ask that because most places, especially if you're in a tourist place, even when I was at that hotel, there were a lot of people who are coming and going. So of course the tourist area is nice, but where else do you like to go? It invites a conversation about someplace outside. So because last week I went to Cologne and Portobello, and those are both places an hour to 3 hours, depending on traffic, away from Panama City. They're not really tourist traps. And they're actually places where poor people live. And there's a lot of history there, a lot of great beach opportunities to go boating and fishing. But it's not a place that really has like the economic backdrop. And that's why I think Black expats in Panama has really committed to grow the economy there by bringing Black expats there, Black tourists there, so that those people have more economic support and resources. So we did things like patronizing a restaurant. We had lunch there, and then they hired dancers from the Congo dancers, an intergenerational dance group. Family who for 5 years has been coming to perform, and even this really young girl, I'm guessing she was maybe 5 or 6, she sang this beautiful song for us. And so it's giving them opportunities, and their parents to be able to, have extra resources as well as exposure. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful day. And so I wouldn't have known that. And it was because of the positive experience that I had going to kind of sort of like a lesser known place that I think this is a powerful question that I want to expand on as I travel around. So, ¿cómo es vive aquí comparado con otros lugares de Panama? So I want to also just close out in this last section by talking just a little bit about some things that surprised me and some things that I would say I didn't plan for or were not really on my plan. So as you may remember, I went to Costa Rica and I had an opportunity to try some amazing fruit. Every piece of fruit I had in Costa Rica was the bomb. Best fruit ever. And I had some pretty amazing good fruit in Spain too, especially the oranges in Valencia and everywhere. They were amazing. I feel like I'm saying amazing a lot, but yeah. So one of the things that has surprised me is that there is so much fast food here. There's so much American fast food here. So one of the things that's not gone according to plan is I haven't eaten as much Panamanian food as I thought because the American food is so plentiful. I mean, it's everywhere. So I've had more American chain food even when I had the time to go explore. I haven't really pushed myself to eat or try new restaurants. I actually do have a list from my YouTube research, 3 lists of restaurants to try in Panama. But I think because the first week I was resting and then I had that, 13-hour bus ride trip, I was a little late. And then because 95% of Panama is Catholic and it was Holy Week, there were a lot of things that were closed or closed early or just didn't open at all. Or I didn't want to risk going someplace thinking it was open because Google Maps said it was open, or Google Maps said it might be open and call. But my Spanish is not of such yet that I want to call and have conversations in Spanish over the phone. So therefore, I chose not to do that. However, this week, today is only Wednesday. One of the things that I've done that is consistent with my sabbatical plan is going to the grocery store. I actually love going to the grocery store, not only to see what local people are doing and buying and what's available and the price point. The prices of the food in the grocery store, to me, are really good compared to Atlanta and Chicago prices that I'm using. I feel like the food is like very good. Now, if you're buying American brands, then of course those are going to be exorbitant, but there's always a comparable local brand that you can patronize or experiment with. And so far, everything that I've tried has been really good. I also like buying prepared food from the grocery store. It's also more affordable. You can reheat it. Now that I'm in an Airbnb, I am going to actually cook at least every other day. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be going to restaurants, but I don't know if I mentioned it. I think I did, but my birthday is this coming weekend. So next Wednesday, I will not be live streaming. I will premiere a video at this same time, a recorded video that I will work on Tuesday. And it might actually be a compilation week 1 or week 2. So depending on how tomorrow and Friday go, I want to do a video with the 200 photo dump pictures. I'm not going to do 200 pictures, but I'm going to find maybe 25 of the best pictures in my camera and turn them into, a really cool short video to share some of my experiences in week one. I think the pictures turned out amazing. Yesterday, for my week two video, which, like I said, it might be the same thing, I'm not sure yet, I did a geisha coffee and gourmet chocolate experience, and it was phenomenal. I found it on Airbnb experiences, and I had here I go. I'm just stuck on the word amazing. I had a wonderful time. The host of that experience, it's a new experience on Airbnb. She was very, very knowledgeable. And so I'm really glad I chose that one. And next week, I have 2 experiences booked. And on this coming Friday, I have an Afro-Cuban dance class booked on Friday. So I have lots of experiences. Like I said, my goal is 2 per week. And since it's my birthday weekend, I'm going to spend a lot of time in the sun, I hope, and a lot of time in the pool. Start going out to those restaurants that I mentioned that I've done research on YouTube about. So one of the things that has surprised me is that there's just way too much American food, American everything. Panama City for my taste. But it's because I guess they have a large American expat community who's patronizing those brands and those stores. The other thing that I would say has really surprised me so far. I'm going to be in a total of 5 Airbnbs over the next 6-7 weeks. And it might be 4 Airbnbs and a hotel. I don't know yet. But I am really impressed so far with just the beauty and the convenience and the quality of the host. And some of that is because I'm also learning how to be a better selector of Airbnbs. One of my strategies, which I'll share in another video again, I'm going to do a compilation. If I continue to feel really good about the choices that I've made in my sabbatical planning guide, I'm going to create a video and create a checklist on things to look for, like how do you know that an Airbnb is a good thing. And even sometimes if I take a risk and I don't know something, I will just write them a message and say, hey, I'm looking at your property for this time, length of time, this time period, and I'm really curious to know blah, 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 blah. And I usually try to pick 3 things. And sometimes it's even on purpose, something that's already implied or written inside their listing, just for clarification, because it's one of those things that if they've been vague about, you just never know. Like, for example, it might say they have a TV, but you don't see a TV in any of the pictures. Like, why are the angles of such that you can only see like the edge of a corner of a TV in a picture? And, if they're newer at the whole Airbnb picture taking and posting experience, there's a lot of reasons that might not be there. But I don't want to assume that there's a TV and a TV that I can watch and that's, a certain size. I'm not a big TV watcher, but I will use it to watch YouTube videos when I'm doing research for this channel. So that's something I ask. And the fact that it says like they'll answer in about 4 hours, but they answer immediately, to me, that's a brownie point. That's an extra point. Also, sometimes it'll say they answer in 4 hours and it takes them 6, 8, or they never. For the first time, I sent a message to a host and they were supposed to answer in 6 hours. I went on and booked actually after 4 hours and not getting an answer because I had written messages to multiple hosts. So I picked one of the people who responded most quickly. And to this day, I still haven't gotten a message. And that was like yesterday this time. I actually booked yesterday this time. So those are some other things that I have been feeling like have been a surprise so far. And I'm just really grateful that things are working out better than expected in most cases. And so far, I think the biggest thing that I have to be careful of is making sure that I am staying true to my goals and staying in alignment to the theme of resting so I can thrive in this sabbatical. We'll be focusing next week's video again on more information about not just my experience with Panama, but hopefully in 2 weeks, I'll be able to have the video where I'll be able to talk, it'll be May probably, more specifically about the tutors that I'm using and why. And I'd like to also some content with some other people who are using tutors about their experience. I happen to think for me, that's been the best way, the most successful way to learn a language. I started with the app Duolingo that almost everybody starts with, and I think it's a great place to start. It's free, it's easy, it's accessible, but if you really want to have conversations and you really want to move your language comprehension forward, you're going to have to do other things. So I'm not a person who listens to a lot of Spanish TV yet. I feel like that is sort of something I've been procrastinating on. I really don't want to spend my time in Latin America sitting down watching television. So I might save that for maybe the winter time or whatever. But I do listen to Spanish music in people's cars, in the building, when I go outside. And I used to listen to it on Spotify. I haven't done that in a while. So I would say if that's something that's of interest to you, please tell me in the comments. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on what kind of content when it comes to the language learning journey that you have questions or concerns about. And practice is the key. I mean, just going out there and opening your mouth and saying it wrong and getting corrected. That's the best way to learn. So thank you so much for your time and your attention today. It's been, as always, a pleasure to sit and talk with you about my experiences, and the best is yet to come. Take care.